The cherry blossoms danced in the spring breeze, their delicate petals swirling like dreams caught in the air, blanketing the ground in shades of soft pink and white. Among the tranquil beauty of Kyoto, hidden beneath the bustling streets and serene temples, lay a forgotten laboratory, a stark contrast to the blossoming world above. Here, darkness thrived, and the faint hum of machinery was the only sound breaking the heavy silence. In this clandestine space, Akiko Saito immersed herself in her work, her fingers deftly maneuvering through complicated sequences of biological data displayed on multiple screens. At just 22, she was already a prodigy, brilliant, driven, and dangerously ambitious. Yet, the world outside was oblivious to the turbulent storm brewing within her heart, a storm birthed from solitude and betrayal. "It must be perfect," she muttered to herself, stirring the bright green liquid in the vial on the table, its color almost ethereal in the harsh fluorescent light. This was the culmination of her life's work, a virus engineered to eradicate not just disease, but humanity's darker instincts, greed, hatred, and violence. For Akiko, it was an act of salvation, a way to cleanse the planet of its burdens. Her concentration was interrupted by a sudden alarm, the low whirring sound cutting through the ambient noises of the lab. Akiko's heart raced. She quickly minimized screens and ensured that the virus remained hidden from prying eyes. Footsteps echoed outside the steel door, growing louder with each passing second. Panic gripped her as she contemplated her next move. As a scientist, she should have anticipated the potential consequences of her work, but visions of a better world clouded her judgment. The door burst open, and 2 agents in dark suits entered, government operatives on a mission to prevent a catastrophe. Their eyes scanned the room, calculating and cold. Akiko held her breath. "Akiko Saito?" one of the agents called, his voice authoritative. "Yes," she responded, her voice steadier than she felt. "We need to talk about your research," the first agent continued, stepping closer, his gaze piercing through to her very core. Little did they know that behind her calm facade lay a tinderbox of emotions, fueled by both fear and a flicker of excitement. Were they here to stop her, or kill her idea? Before she could respond, the other agent moved in, eyes narrowing as he caught sight of the vials, the biohazard symbols, the equipment. She felt exposed, as if her soul had been laid bare. Swiftly, Akiko turned her focus back to her screens, pretending to type, a calculative feign of disinterest to mask the overwhelming dread rising within her. "We know about your experiments," the first agent continued, crossing his arms. "And we can't let you continue." Akiko could only manage a sarcastic laugh, her mind racing. "You think you can stop progress? You think you understand what's at stake?" One of the agents took a step forward, his expression softening momentarily. "We're not here to argue about progress, Akiko. We're here to save lives." Just as tensions began to escalate, the vibrant light of the lab flickered, casting eerie shadows across the sterile interior. Convinced that her work was about to be discovered, an impulsive decision rose within her. She would not be stopped. Suddenly, the door swung wide again, and a tall figure in a navy coat entered. The agents turned sharply, their focus shifting to the newcomer. As he stepped into the artificial light, the tension in the room grew palpable. Agent Haruto Fukuda, known for his incisive instincts and unwavering resolve, had entered the scene. He locked eyes with Akiko, momentarily forgetting his mission. The air crackled with unspoken tension, his heart racing at the unexpected beauty before him. "Who are you?" one of the agents barked, redirecting his attention to Haruto. "Special Agent," Haruto replied, his voice calm yet authoritative. "I'm in charge of this investigation now." "That's not how this works," the first agent snapped, feigning confidence despite uncertainty creeping into his demeanor. "Actually, it is. I've been following leads on her research for months. She's brilliant, and unfortunately, we can't let her finish what she started," Haruto said, his voice low but powerful. Akiko could see the determination in his deep-set eyes, a glimmer of something she had almost forgotten, the understanding that she was not alone in her fight, even if their battle was against each other. As the agents argued, Akiko's mind spun with possibilities. Haruto's presence offered her a flicker of hope, a connection she had longed for. But that hope mixed bitterly with the reality of her situation, a brilliant mind trapped, seeking escape through destruction. For days that turned into weeks, the agents monitored the laboratory, hoping to gather evidence without alerting Akiko. She worked harder, fueled by adrenaline and a newfound desire to prove her worth. Haruto, always observing from a distance, became her unwitting confidant. Late one night, as the lab lay quiet, Akiko found herself lost in her thoughts, poring over data when Haruto entered, this time with a lack of pretense, leaning against the lab's entryway. He wore a weary expression, one that slowly turned to intrigue as his eyes roamed the space. "What are you really trying to achieve here, Akiko?" he asked gently, allowing her to feel as if she were the only one who mattered at that moment. "I want a better world," she answered honestly, her voice barely above a whisper. "One without hatred and pain." "What you're creating could bring about the end of humanity," Haruto replied, a mixture of admiration and concern evident in his tone. "You don't understand the scale of what you're attempting. You need to stop." "You don't know me. You don't know my pain," she snapped, her voice rising. You're just another uniform looking to stop progress." As the words hung in the air, Haruto stepped forward, closing the distance between them. He could see the yearning in her eyes, the desperation mingling with a haunting sadness that suffocated her. "You're more than this. You have the power to change things, to heal." Suddenly, a silence enveloped them. Haruto was right. She was trapped between her ideals and the venomous path she had unwittingly embarked upon. In the flickering light, something shifted between them. Emotions collided, and sparks ignited. Days turned to nights, and amidst lab experiments and late-night conversations, their connection deepened. They shared stories of their pasts, revealing layers of vulnerability and pain. Akiko found herself falling for Haruto, his understanding nature, his quiet strength, and the way he made her feel seen. In those fragile moments when the weight of the world faded, Akiko found herself questioning everything. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could create a better future together, without destruction. But in the depths of her heart still lay the green vial, an unyielding reminder of her dark ambitions. Akiko began to sense a shift in Haruto as well. The initial determination seemed to douse in uncertainty. As she experimented more, the lines blurred, blurring reality and the growing affection between them. With each passing moment, she felt compelled to share everything, to reveal her heart and soul. But there lingered a doubt, a nagging fear that their relationship was built on shadows and secrets. The allure of their connection wove tales of love amidst an underlying truth that threatened to tear them apart. And so the dance continued, each swept under the currents of passion and obsession, navigating emotions that were dangerously entwined with the fates they had chosen. As spring deepened and cherry blossoms began to fall, a reckoning loomed on the horizon. Would Akiko succeed in rewriting humanity's destiny, or would the very ambition that drove her lead to her demise and embrace with her inner darkness, igniting a potential disaster that awaited just below the surface? As spring drew closer to summer, the vibrant cherry blossoms that once adorned Kyoto fluttered away, leaving the city under a canopy of green. In the hidden lab, the atmosphere was thick with tension as Akiko delved deeper into her research. The initial excitement of her connection with Haruto now sat precariously balanced against the spiraling conflict within her. Days passed in a blur of data and experiments, but with each passing moment, Akiko's resolve faltered. Haruto's presence had become a beacon of light in her otherwise dark world, and while she remained committed to her mission, the whirlwind of emotions had begun to cloud her judgment. Her lab became a sanctuary and a cage, a place where her dreams of a better world began to collide with the reality of her choices. One fateful night, as the dim light cast long shadows across the sterile surfaces, Akiko found herself alone with Haruto. They engaged in another conversation that danced between intellect and emotion. "You don't have to do this, Akiko," Haruto pleaded, his voice low and firm. "You're smarter than this. There must be another way." Akiko felt her heart thump against her chest, torn between the dark ambition that drove her and the flickering hope that Haruto represented. "You don't understand. I've seen the worst of humanity. Greed, rage, destruction. They plague us like a disease. I can change all that." "But at what cost?" Haruto pressed, stepping closer, the intensity of his gaze challenging her determination. "You're risking everything, your life, your future, even the lives of many. Do you really believe in this vision? Akiko's defenses crumbled as she whispered, I want to believe we can build something better together. I wanted to share this with you. Her eyes shone with unshed tears, a mix of vulnerability and desperation. But I need you to understand, I can't turn back now. Silence stretched between them, laden with unspoken truths. Haruto's gaze softened and he reached out to touch her arm. And what if I can't accept that? What if I'm here to stop you? In that moment, vulnerability spiraled into confrontation. The impending truth threatened to shatter the fragile connection they had built. Akiko retreated, instinctively pulling away from his touch. You're just like them, she spat, clenching her fists. An agent programmed to destroy. Everything I've seen, everything I know, points to a terrible outcome, Akiko, he shot back, his frustration palpable. But I've also seen your potential. If only you could channel some of this anger into something constructive rather than destructive. Her breath caught in her throat. The tension electrified the air between them. She looked at him, simultaneously fragile and fierce, desperately searching for reassurance. You don't have to fight me. I can make a difference. Their heated exchange transformed into something deeper, a clash of ideals driven by passion and frustration. Suddenly, the lab transformed from a fortress of isolation into a breeding ground for raw emotions, threatening to unravel their destinies. Days turned into weeks. The government continued to monitor her lab with every passing moment, agents sending reports back to their superiors detailing Akiko's progress. The pressure intensified as external forces loomed larger, creating a looming threat over her sanctuary. One night, driven by emotions and a sense of urgency, Akiko made a life-altering decision. She reached for the green vial containing the virus, the culmination of her work, and cradled it against her heart, contemplating the gravity of her actions. I'll prove you all wrong, she murmured to herself, the determination in her voice cutting through her doubts. This was not merely a creation, it was a solution, a testament to her perseverance, an answer that could shift the existence of humanity itself. The following day was a turning point. During yet another late-night conversation with Haruto, Akiko finally unveiled her intentions. I want you to see the virus, to understand, she declared, her voice steadied by newfound conviction. We can't keep dancing around this. If you want to stop me, then see what I've created. With reluctant acceptance, Haruto agreed to enter the secretive space where the virus lay contained, his heart racing at the possibilities and dangers that lay within the confines of Akiko's laboratory. He stepped into the sterile room, the cool air wrapping around him like an icy shroud. After moving through the claustrophobic labyrinth of devices and equipment, they stood before a glass display encasing the vial. The green liquid inside shimmered ominously, almost hypnotically, each bubble rising to the surface, echoing the potential for catastrophe. Is this what you believe will change the world? Haruto asked, his voice a whisper, tinged with apprehension. You could unleash something that could end millions of lives. I'm not afraid of the consequences, she replied defiantly, but her heart wavered at the uncertainty of her path. Imagine a world free from pain, a world where humanity can start anew. By erasing it? Haruto countered, incredulous, or by making it worse? You're risking everything, Akiko. How can you be so sure? I've lived in the shadows of others' mistakes for too long. I'll no longer be a pawn in a cruel game of fate. This is my destiny, she claimed, tension weaving through her body as the urgency of her mission surged within her. As the confrontation deepened, the dynamics between them shifted. Passion inflamed by ambition now threatened to combust under the weight of their conflicting beliefs. The air felt pregnant with words unspoken, fears undisclosed, and desires untamed. Let me help you to find a better way, Haruto implored, his eyes pleading for understanding. Together, we can harness your brilliance without causing destruction. That's not enough, Akiko declared, fists clenched at her sides, her frustration boiling over. You want me to slow down. You want to keep me tethered to a world that has betrayed me. But in the heat of that moment, their eyes locked, and something raw ignited between them that transcended their individual motivations. It was desire, fear, frustration, love, all muddled in a tempest of emotion. Before either could think about the ramifications, Haruto stepped closer, his breath catching in the thick air. I understand your pain, Akiko, but if you do this, We'll be lost in the chaos together. As the words hung heavy between them, Akiko stepped back, another layer of wall rising between them. You don't know me. You think you can save me? All you're doing is holding me back. A beat of silence stretched until Akiko turned, the boundaries of their emotions threatening to fracture entirely. Haruto, struggling with his own feelings, reached out but fell short as she whirled away, unwilling to embrace vulnerability. This is beyond us, she whispered. You can't love someone like me. The following night was one to remember. An electric atmosphere pulsed within the lab as Akiko stormed in, an ambitious fire burning brightly in her eyes. Steeled by her emotions, she had decided to take the plunge, to unleash the virus on a small, controlled test population she deemed as worthy. With trembling hands, she prepared the vial once more, her spirit a tangled web of conviction and dread. A flicker of doubt coursed through her. Was this the answer, or was she merely chasing shadows in a quest for control? As she labored, she felt Haruto's presence linger at the doorway, watching her with an intensity that made her heart race. Akiko, he called softly, as if afraid of what she would say next. You don't have to do this. Stay out of my way, she hissed, a surge of panic rising within her. Intensity, anger, and desperation welled up inside her like a tidal wave, crashing against her very core. In that moment, they faced each other, caught in a storm of uncertainty. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. But when the confrontation reached its boiling point, Haruto made a move that shattered the tension. In a leap of hope, he stepped closer, his hand reaching out to cradle her face. Please, he whispered, don't let this darkness consume you. Together, we can fight for a better tomorrow. Overwhelmed by the electric connection between them, Akiko's defenses crumbled, uncertainty cascading into pain. Sometimes I feel so lost, Haruto, I don't know how to get to the light. I'll help you find it, I swear, he vowed, his eyes ablaze with sincerity. We don't have to plunge into darkness together. As they stood there, emotions raging, the world outside continued its course. Akiko felt a warmth envelop her heart, yet reality pressed on with an undeniable weight. The air grew heavy as she whispered, You think love can save me? I think it can guide you, he responded earnestly, a silence stretching between them fraught with tension. Yet deep within, Akiko felt the whisper of despair cling to her very soul. Would love truly be enough to turn the tide against the darkness lurking within her? As reality collided with passion, the lab became a battleground of the heart, a place where love, ambition, chaos, and dreams intertwined, forging the path toward an uncertain destiny. Would they embrace the light, or succumb to the weight of their choices? As the days wore on, the delicate balance between Akiko and Haruto teetered dangerously close to collapse. The tension thickened, now laced with urgency and desperation, as Akiko wrestled with the implications of her intentions. Dark thoughts lurked in the corners of her mind, whispers urging her to push forward with her plans, regardless of the consequences. Haruto, however, clung to hope, determined to break through her bravado and get her to see that there was another way. The cherry blossoms had long since faded into the warm embrace of summer, and the world around them buzzed with life, while Akiko remained isolated in her determined pursuit. The air in the lab grew suffocating, charged with darkness and anticipation. One fateful night, a palpable heat surged when Akiko reached her breaking point. Staring into the depths of the green vial, the alluring liquid reflected her darkest desires. She knew she was on the brink of crossing an irrevocable line, but the intoxication of power overshadowed her fear. As she paced the lab, her breath quickening, Haruto entered, concern etched across his features. Akiko, please, you don't have to do this. Let me help you, please. His voice was steady, but it resonated with an urgency that sent chills down her spine. What if I don't want help, she retorted, a bitter edge to her voice. What if I just want to make a statement? The silence hung heavy, pulsating with unspoken desperation. Haruto stepped closer, unease transforming into determination, closing the distance between them. Then I'll stand with you, and we'll make it together, not through violence, but through understanding. Understanding? Akiko scoffed, but her heart wavered. Perhaps that's an ideal for the weak. I don't believe that, and I don't think you do either, he pressed on, vulnerability spilling through each word. In that moment of raw honesty, the air crackled with tension, and the wall Akiko had built around her heart began to fracture. Could she really abandon her mission for something so fragile, so uncertain? But Haruto's gaze, intense and earnest, cracked the layers of her resolve, igniting something deep within her. She watched him, longing and love intermingled with fear. "You see me," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes, "but I'm not sure I can be saved." "Let me show you," he murmured, his voice low as he reached for her, his hand brushing against her cheek with an electrifying caress. "We can embrace this darkness together. Don't let it consume you." With their worlds colliding in that fragile moment of intimacy, the passion that had simmered between them blazed brighter. Akiko felt herself surrendering to the connection, her heart racing as she allowed herself to be vulnerable. "I want to find a way out," she breathed, the uncertainty still framing her thoughts. "But right now, I feel lost." Without hesitation, Haruto responded, "Let's lose ourselves in each other then. Let's drown out the chaos." As the words hung in the air, a primal urge overtook them. Slowly, he stepped forward, their proximity undeniable, while his hand slid around her waist, pulling her closer. Akiko melted against him, her body responding instinctively to the warmth of his touch. "Can you love me?" she whispered, her voice vulnerable and fragile, barely audible above the storm of emotions swirling in the room. "I already do," he promised, and with that declaration, their lips crushed together, igniting a fire that burned away their doubts. Passion enveloped them, igniting a whirlwind of emotions as they fell deeper into one another. Haruto's hands explored her body reverently, igniting sparks everywhere they touched, while Akiko surrendered to the heat radiating between them. It was as if their souls intertwined, forging a connection that transcended reality, leaving their pain and ambitions forgotten in the haze of desire. In their urgency, clothes were shed, barriers broken. Nothing existed but the two of them, wrapped in a world of intimacy and longing. As their bodies intertwined, doubt dilapidated into bliss, forgotten as they surrendered to the heat of each other's embrace. And then, within the throes of passion, Akiko felt the vial drawing her once more, a dark temptation whispering promises of obliteration and rebirth. She grasped the vial, holding it between them. "If we do this together, we can have the power to erase everything that holds us back." "What are you suggesting?" Haruto questioned, confusion flickering in his fervent gaze. "Something unthinkable," she whispered, desire and desperation swirling together. "We could make ourselves immortal together, in a sense, our own twisted legacy." She took the vial, her heart pounding as she pressed it to her lips. "I'll take you with me. We'll be everlasting, our love, our pain, just us." A surge of fear flickered in Haruto's eyes, but he also felt the magnetic pull of her words. "If we must, then let us fuse our lives as one," he responded, a tinge of apprehension coloring his voice. "If we're going to do this, we must face the consequences together." And in that moment of heated recklessness, their connection both physical and metaphysical, their destinies intertwined. Akiko poured the green liquid into her mouth before crashing her lips on his, their bodies melding together as they exchanged the forbidden essence. The taste was bitter yet intoxicating, a reminder of the ambition that had birthed the very virus they had embraced. And as the poison settled within them, a wave of ecstasy flooded through their bodies, followed by an overwhelming wave of dizziness. They were caught between love and destruction, and as they fell deeper into the embrace of one another, the world began to blur around them. It was a union forged not just through desire, but through a shared darkness that promised to erase everything they knew. In that last instant, as life and destruction merged into one defining moment, Akiko felt her heart race, a heady cocktail of agony and exhilaration as she breathed in the essence of their irreversible fate. "Together forever," she whispered, their hands intertwined as every fiber of their beings ignited in a crescendo of emotion. As time suspended itself and the world faded around them, they surrendered completely. A final act of love amidst the chaos, a tangible silence wrapping around them before everything shattered. The lab erupted into a glowing haze of green light, wrapping around them as their bodies entwined, engulfing them in both darkness and liberation. In the end, they became one with the devastating consequences of their choices, lost to the world, but forever embracing the legacy they had created together in love and destruction. And in the aftermath, As the echoes of their existence faded, the city of Kyoto remained oblivious to the sacrifice, a beautiful and tragic reminder of love's power and the shadows that lurked within the human heart.